we don't have enough available units for people to purchase and or rent, as it is right now, for the population we have here.
When the thoughts are calmly collected and the imagination is properly directed, the dots are easily connected.
Good to be here, brother. Finally. Long time in the making, eh?
It really has been.
Yeah,
but not really, because it's like we keep crossing, almost like the two fish, you know. And here you are, the Pisces.
I'm doing this, right?
And I'm literally like once again finding myself crossing with you, and again while you're like taking like real action in your fitness, because that's how we met.
Yeah,
I met you at Pure Motivation Fitness in Vaughan.
Yes,
you were training for a boxing match, and Dimitri was training you, and I came in to do all the video.
That's right. Videography.
Follow your story, and I learned about everything you were and everything you were fighting for, and that's what really resonated with me most about you. Yeah. So let me introduce you to the audience. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with Matt Garnet. I was going to say Mr., but you're Master Matt Garnet. You're Master of Housing and Real Estate and Development, but you're also you're a dragon sign, and you're a master, I feel, of emotions and humanity, being also the Piscean aspect. Yeah. And I'm happy to have someone who has like that real knowledge of what seems to be boring stuff for a lot of people, although very relevant. I'm talking about the housing stuff, because most people like see it as like, oh God, more political stuff. But like, you explain it to me in a way that I get, and I think this is what I want to share with people. We need to navigate these waters with someone we can trust, and I'm happy to bring this podcast forth. Yeah, thank you for being here, brother.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody. So a water dragon at that, I might add.
A
by
water,
the way. Yes.
So because you're the element water, and then also Pisces sun. So like you're really aware of water in the esoteric sciences, emotions. Energy and motion. What can we say? Like where can we begin from understanding like the implications of what's happening from an emotional perspective? Because mentally, this is like a mental health crisis.
Oh, absolutely. So thank you, first of all, Nico, for having me. This is awesome.
Pleasure, brother.
So thank you, man. I know that we've been working on trying to get together, and I want to clean up that I missed one of my sessions. I am atoning for that. We're having steak.
We're having steak tonight. We're good.
And for all our vegan people, we're having portobellos as well.
And portobellos.
So we're good. My bad. I am so blessed and happy to be here. So thank you for helping me be here to help connect the dots with everybody.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All in divine.
Wanted to clean that up. So own my shit.
Yeah. And hey, man, this is what it takes to be a mature, healthy man or human. Period. At all. It's like to just take responsibility for where we go off and veer off, recognizing that too is part of the bigger purpose. Maybe like the stars are better in terms of timing and aligning for us to have this exact conversation right now, but it's all good. I appreciate that. That's like really manning up, and that's why I respect you as a man. Straight up, bro.
Brother. Right on. Yeah. So talking about navigating murky waters, being a water sign myself, helping hold the water still so we can look at the bottom and see what's actually lurking down there and what's going on. Wow. What a mess we are in.
We're in. When you say we, real quick, like you talking about Canadians only, you talking about society, humanity, like?
Well, I'm going to start nationally with Canadians, but that will evolve too.
Because we're in Canada.
We're in Canada. We're in Toronto here, the epicenter, the T-dot, whatever you want to call it.
The meeting place is what it literally translates.
It does. The meeting place, with our Indigenous communities, right? Yes. That's the meeting place, the gathering place, right?
Yes.
Yonge Street, longest highway in the world.
The
world, Highway 11. So my introduction is I'm senior vice president of a property management and development company. I've been involved in real estate here in Toronto for 25 years. I've been a home builder, a real estate agent. I've been a land developer. I've been a land developer consultant. I've been director of development for a number of companies, and now I'm a senior vice president. So I deal with policy from governments that come in, and housing is actually a provincial policy. So our housing here is driven by the provinces. Okay.
Got you.
The issue with that is that the federal government makes decisions on immigration, taxation, other things, and downloads it to the provinces. And lately, past 20 years, let's say, there hasn't been a lot of communication between those two. And when your housing stock isn't enough, there isn't enough like housing to what's the word I'm looking for?
You say stock, like to stock as in like enough houses to house the people that are immigrating into the country?
No,
Is that what you mean?
no.
What do you mean by stock? Yeah.
So let me back up.
Yeah.
So when we look at any given city or a community, we look at how much vacant land is available to grow the community and keep expanding the boundaries, called the urban boundary. Okay. Then we look up the built-up boundary, right? Okay. And the built-up boundary is made up of communities that have detaches, semi-detaches, townhouses, mid-rises, and high-rises, right? Now, at one time, there was a thought that, oh my God, we're constructing so much, we're overbuilding, we're going to be left with all these vacant buildings.
Oh, okay.
That couldn't have been more wrong, right?
Right.
And we don't have enough available units for people to purchase and or rent, as it is right now, for the population we have here. Never mind the 1.5 million still coming in.
Wow.
Okay, so that's what's frustrating the issue. And then you compound it, Nico. It's not just that. It's, well, why don't we just build more houses?
Right.
Well, in a perfect world, we would.
Sure.
That would be awesome. Nico, grab your hammer. Let's go. Let's go build houses.
But that costs money and time and energy.
Thank you. Right. Now, in order to get through your municipal entitlements, which is getting through as rezoning, getting through an official plan amendment, getting through NOACs or your SPA. These are all acronyms for site plan approval, getting your permissions to change the land to permit what you want to build. That takes 3 to 5 years. Okay?
That's a long time.
That's literally half a decade just to get the permission to build the homes. Then you have to sell the homes,
which is another whole process in and of itself, right?
Thank you. Yeah. Right. So a bank is not going to go give Nico Laus money to go build 200 homes if Nico Laus doesn't have anyone buying those homes and putting deposits down, right? So you have to go to market. You got to market the homes, sell them, get a certain percentage of them pre-sold before the bank will give you the money to actually build them. And then you have to build them.
And you have to actually build them.
So let's talk about that.
So that,
our trades. We have a declining trade population right now, Nico. Our youth are not going into the trades in a rate fast enough to absolve the amount of trades that are retiring right now. And the thought was, well, maybe we would beef up immigration and bring them in.
Trade people in,
But they haven't been bringing in trade people.
Right. What have they been bringing in?
Well,
people to vote, people to politically
empower
the agenda.
Right.
Not to mention, I've heard actually that they've been bringing in a lot as of late in their like kind of young 20s, which is like the typical like soldier sort of age, especially for young men in their 20s. And they're saying something about these are going to be deployed as the United Nations task force when it comes down to the next scamdemic that they're going to drop, because they know that the next one no one's going to buy after the first one, recognizing that in hindsight it was all It was literally that, a scamdemic. And I always say, correct me when I call it a pandemic. It was a pandemic of deception is what it was, a pandemic of ignorance. But the actual pandemic that we're referring to, the idea of like this virus that came along and killed all these people, it was a complete scam. It was predicated on no basis other than like a PCR, an actual test.
Rapid test.
Yeah. That by the very Nobel Peace Prize winner himself, but the creator of it, Kerry Mullis, said on record, he said, this is not a diagnostic tool. And because you can, if you zoom in enough, you will find, and that's what they were doing. Fauci was amplifying the cycles per second that the test is supposed to be run at from like 25. It was up to 35 to 40. And therefore they were getting all these positives, but the positive again was not necessarily. So we had a pandemic of positives. That's what we had, a pandemic
or false
of cases.
Positives, right?
Or false positives.
Yeah,
Thank you. So apparently, just to go back, I know I'm gonna veer it off a little bit there, but you and I did go through that period. In fact, quite personally and intimately, we lived together.
Yep.
In a basement apartment. Speaking of the housing crisis, you would just So talk to us more, about this. About this is a big issue now. So
it's
they're not bringing
issue.
in tradespeople.
Yeah, we've got. So even if we magically waved a magic wand and said, "Here's 1 million building permits. There's the land. Developers go build them. Awesome. Let's go." Nobody can afford them.
Nobody can afford them. And
so
why
we've got we've got interest rates being what they are right now.
Right.
So with the inflation being what it is, and that's a global thing, we'll agree on that.
Right.
Our inflation targets have now been met. Okay. So they dropped the interest rates 0.25%. That's a token move. Doesn't do anything to move the needle. Like Benjamin Tall, CIBC chief economist, said we need 200 basis points or 2% to come down in order to get back to affordability for the average Canadian. Okay.
2%. They only did 1/4
They did 1/4%. The next rate announcements in July, we'll see what happens, but the prediction is they'll drop it another 1/4. So now we're at 0.5 point down. So,
and you're saying that does nothing, basically.
It doesn't, because if you take a look at, so the way the banks work, Nico, is like this. They have an overnight lending rate. Okay. I think it was like 3.5%, 3.25%, something like that. They turn around and they charge 2% on top of that to lend the money to the banks, right? That's like 5.25%.
Okay.
The banks turn around and charge another 2% on top of that to be prime. That's your prime lending rate. Prime. And all the mortgages are based off of prime. Prime minus, prime plus. Are you doing a variable? Are you doing a fixed? What's your credit like? All that other stuff comes on that basis of prime.
Right.
But prime only moves down when the overnight lending rate moves down.
And by overnight lending rate, I was going to ask you that. What does it mean by overnight?
So the banks, I'm not an economist per se.
Because I was going to say this has probably to do with economy, like what's happening in the stock markets and the Dow Jones and all that gibberish to me, man. And I can actually powerfully admit that, even though
a lot of it's bonds, actually, Nico. It's the CMB, the Canadian mortgage bonds, and that kind of governs where interest rates will go typically. So the central bank, or the Bank of Canada has the treasury, the money, and they'll lend it. They have an overnight lending rate where they apparently lend the money to the big banks, the big five: RBC, TD, Scotia, CIBC, BMO.
See, when you mentioned the big five, the only big five I knew was the big the big five record labels, which have already now merged down to like the big three. Is that happening as well in the banking world?
Oh yeah, the banks went through that in the 90s. Like they bought up, like TD bought Canada Trust. That's why it's TD Canada Trust. Right. Royal bought Royal Trust. That's why it's RBC now, right? Like there was all these mergers that happened in the late 90s. That was already done in the banking
And we know
sector.
that's dangerous, right? Every time there's
very dangerous.
It's decentralizing, it's centralizing.
It's monopolizing, right? They're taking trust companies and marrying them to banks. So they're bigger. They have more balance sheet, more money. They can control things better. They can fix the rates, but they'll say that they don't fix the rates because that would be anti-competitive, right? But let's be honest here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Them, the oil companies and insurance companies, right?
So
but that's a
insur- 'cause
different
when you talk
road. I'm
about
not going
bonds, you talking about insurance
Yeah.
companies?
No.
Well,
We'll
that's
get
something
there,
different.
but
That's
that's something different, man.
See, this is
That's-
why, bro. Again, it's it's good to have you here, man. I mean, I could sit down and watch YouTube, like, and try to learn this stuff, listening to other people talk, but it just doesn't make sense. But there's a way you break it down, and that's why I wanted to bring you on the podcast. And I
Thank
think
you.
that's why I want my audience to get to experience who and what this spirit is, that you have a grip around this stuff, and we're gonna connect the dots on even that with later the mental health aspect. We're gonna talk about some deeper things.
it does affect mental health, and that's
For
where I'm
sure.
going with this. Like my brother, my youngest brother is a social worker, right?
Okay.
So politically, him and I are very. There's a big dichotomy between us, right?
Yes.
But one thing I will agree and concede is that if people cannot afford a home, and let's be clear about something, okay? A basic human necessity is not to own a home. I'm going to say that again. A basic human necessity is not to own a home.
No.
It is to have shelter.
Shelter. That's it. Like based on the Maslow pyramid, right?
That's right.
It doesn't say a home. It doesn't say a mortgage.
Doesn't say a condo or a
You
townhouse.
own it, whether you rent it.
Shelter.
Shelter. Thank you.
Shelter.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm bringing it down to brass tacks.
Absolutely.
Shelter. So we know that we need shelter. We don't have enough shelter to provide for the people that are here, let alone the ones that are coming in. So if you know that and you're struggling to find a place to rent, or you're struggling to afford your mortgage that's coming up for renewal, worried about selling it, what the market's like, you got to call a good real estate agent or call a good mortgage broker to help you out. We know people, obviously.
Right.
We can, help any of your viewers with that.
Yes.
But the
Hit
point
us
I'm
up
making
if
is
you do. Yeah. I mean, but the point is, go on. Yeah. The bigger picture.
the bigger picture is that absolutely causes mental stress on the average person. Because at a basic level, if you are not stable in knowing that you have a place to reside in, irrespective of whether you rent or own, I don't care.
Right.
A place to reside in,
Right.
you're nomadic, and that causes anxiety. Right?
Absolutely.
And that is a bridge to lead people to do things that they
Yes.
normally wouldn't do under desperate circumstances, and embrace certain substances, be susceptible to certain scams or schemes to be placed upon them because they're so worried about their primary thing of shelter. Right.
So this is where it comes together psychologically.
That's where it comes
in
to
that pyramid. And for those who don't know Maslow's pyramid, it's the hierarchy of human motivation, correct? Where
I
the
believe
top
so,
is
yes.
called self-actualization. We'll bring it up. I'll link it as well in the video here. But like, if we don't have that base, I think it's food, water, and shelter.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Which food and water we can somewhat find, but like shelter is the issue here, the housing crisis. You're saying physically there is not enough places to rent.
There is not.
And
there
even all the developers, with all the work they're doing, it takes so much time before they can even hit the soil and put any nails in the wood.
Yeah, the shovel in the ground, we call it.
Shovel
right?
in the ground. That's it.
Yeah,
that's the what I was looking for. It's a whole.
Don't put me
language.
in the ground, Nico. It's a shovel that's going in the ground, not Matt.
We're not talking about casino. Joe Pesci. Speaking of,
you only exist out of here because of me.
Speaking of shovels in the ground, man, apparently Robert De Niro, now that I mentioned casino, apparently celebrities, and we saw this throughout the scamdemic, we're literally just like endorsing.
Oh, they became very politicized, man. Right? Yeah, I don't like that.
Apparently, De Niro just got kicked off of Kevin Costner's production.
Oh, Horizon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love Kevin Costner. So
Costner, yeah, because he's like big director now. But anyways, apparently there's... I can only hold so much space for celebrity talk because I know all of it is just like endorsements. It's all just now to the point that it's like even politicizing it's propaganda and therefore it's warfare, and part of me doesn't even want to look there because I'm aware that the first war that I must really like win and conquer is, like Plato said, the one within. Especially if I am going to live up to my name, Nico. Like, it means to win. And the only way I can win is win within. I find when I look at this stuff, it really gives me anxiety because I feel powerless. I feel like I can't do anything.
Yeah.
What do we do other than like go and like lynch the, Trudeau? And like, I'll say that. I'll say that publicly because he already knows. Like,
we're not far off that.
We're not far off that,
yeah,
probably.
no,
And maybe
no.
the only difference between back in the days and now is technology makes it a lot harder because you have like way more heightened defense. But dude knows he has it coming. I mean, you can't possibly be calling these kinds of shots, contradicting
100%.
yourself in front of your entire country and not be aware that you got something coming for you, man. But like, I can't change that. All I could do is change myself and change your thoughts, change your life, right? Like going back to that whole ideology, which is the spiritual recognition that all of this is a spiritual issue. The tangible world is being affected by the intangible. Going back to the dragon nature. So,
we could go there for sure. But before we do, I just want to
for sure. Let's keep in the left brain of it.
That.
Give us more of the context.
So I don't want to come on your show and be the bearer of bad news. I just want people to understand
give us the truth though, bro.
Where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So there's something called the Canadian dream, the American dream.
American dream, yeah.
Work hard, raise your children, save some money, own your own home,
right?
Blah blah blah. And for those people who are enlightened and watch your show, I'm sure people are aware of the Great Reset and other books and things of that nature.
We haven't talked about it enough quite just yet. I haven't delved into that. But, I mean, a lot of the audience, you're right. They've already been connecting their own dots. And that we're aware of is happening.
Right.
Agenda 2030.
So one of the tenets of that is a line that I heard that was scary, which was, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Klaus
Schwab, right?
Klaus Schwab, or as I say, Klaus Anal Schwab, because that's what that guy's a reptile, honestly, straight up. If you look at his psychometry, like him and George Soros, these are guys that are literally reptiles that are somehow still in the human form. Whether it's like by the excessive adrenochrome that they're still in consuming, you can thank the disgusting practice of child trafficking and all of it. But these guys,
dude, that's demonic.
It's absolutely, and that's when I say reptile, I'm talking about like draconian. Like there's an actual constellation called Draco, and apparently this is like an intergalactic. There are politics that go way beyond this little Earth politics that we're seeing and stuff. Not to go deep into that, but no doubt, yeah. But you mentioned Klaus Schwab, and I'm just to also point out he's a Rockefeller. I think if you look at his bloodline.
So I'm gonna connect that thought for our peeps in a sec.
Yeah.
But what I was getting to by that was when we look at Bill Gates buying hundreds of thousands of acres of agricultural farmland throughout the States.
Right.
You look at BlackRock, you look at other large corporations buying single-family detached houses en masse. So the corporations are beginning to buy up all these things, and then turn around and rent to people. And you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy, right? So,
and you can't buy because they've bought.
Well, the pricing right now with the interest rates, the mortgage regulations being the stress test, which is something I have a major issue with. Well, I've spoken to your brother on this issue many times, and Philip, he agrees with me. George Stamatakos, other guys, they understand.
We're gonna get him on the show soon too, because I want to get
Georgie.
him on,
George's a light cat, man. He's
my brother.
Hey, man. Oh, your brother. Oh, damn right.
Yeah. When it comes to connecting, I don't know George personally, and I'm sure he's full of wisdom.
Hey, he's a Thailand brother with me, man. That's
okay.
Yeah.
But when it comes to connecting the dots, I know my brother's he's got that mind. He's got that soul of just seeing the
very
big
Librian
picture. Librian with Aquarian moon, and definitely. So we'll bring him on as well. But to go with what you're saying. So.
Now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, yeah.
So where was I?
Basically, like, okay, if they're buying up all of the homing, right, and therefore, okay, so like the mortgage.
So the stress test.
That's the stress test. That's it.
Okay, so when our rates were very low, and many of the your viewers, our audience, you'll remember that it was only a few years ago we had like 1.5%, 1.8%, 2.3% mortgage rates. Everybody was gorging on it. We went through the pandemic. Everybody was buying real estate. $1 million mortgages, $2 million mortgages. Didn't matter because, hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Prime Minister Trudeau came in the open media, had a press kit and said, and I quote, "Mortgage rates will stay low for a very long time." End quote. So when you put out a statement like that,
yeah,
to the people, and people go and gorge on mortgages,
right,
they went and said, well, maybe we should, when people qualify for a mortgage, Nico, even though their mortgage rate's going to be 2.3%, we're going to add 2% on top of that and make them qualify as though it was 4.3%. So they don't go crazy and take on these huge mortgages that they'll never be able to afford. Right?
Right.
Okay. They went and did that.
They went and did that anyway.
And it tempered the buying a little bit. And why did they do that? Because they were signaling that interest rates are going to go up at some point. We never expected that it would go up 19 times and have a trajectory like that. They, or what? I can't remember. 16. They raised it in a matter of 2 years exponentially, to the point where the overnight lending rate, we're sitting at 7.25, or now 6% prime, or no, 7% prime. We're sitting at right now, and they're still putting the stress test on that. Well, who the hell can afford $1 million mortgage at like 8-9%? Like, so you're making it almost impossible for people to get qualified for a mortgage at the prices we have now. But the prices aren't crashing because we have a shortage of supply. Economics 101 demands the less you have of something, the more valuable it is.
Yes.
So who's able to go and pick up the real estate at that prices?
Isn't that where we have
The
all
Black
these-
Rocks, the Carl Schwabs, the George Soroses, all those other guys. You'll own nothing, you'll be happy. Right? So the pressure has to be put on the federal government to get the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, to bring down those rates, because our inflation targets have now been met, as per Benjamin Tull, CIBC chief economist. Okay, it's not me saying this. That's them, right? So if we've met our inflationary targets, you have no reason keeping these rates where they are, other than a Machiavellian, nefarious scheme to impoverish the people, choke them, and allow other people to buy up whatever housing is here. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So that's the bad news. I have some good news for people.
That's pretty, that's literally nefarious, Machiavellian. That's total.
Oh, you like those words. I thought you researched that ahead of time.
Yeah, man. I learned when I looked, Jordan Peterson used them a couple times.
Oh, I love Jordan. You know I'm a huge fan.
Oh, both of us. Yeah. I know some people hate Jordan Peterson, especially your feminists, but the real feminists actually love him, because what Jordan represents is true equality and equanimity, which is what they keep on preaching about, but instead it's like they're too busy putting all the focus on the whole transgender agenda, and therefore we lose the whole purpose. But Jordan's the perfect, I think, messenger to propagate equanimity. I see him as a true Gemini. He represents both sides.
The duality,
right? Yep. And he's very vulnerable. You see him break down.
Well, you've seen him cry on podcasts, Open TV.
Yeah.
One thing I like about Jordan,
faking. He ain't no actor. He's really concerned. And
dude, he's a clinical psychologist. He was at U of T.
Yep.
He had tenure, and they fired him, and that was part of a political movement.
Yep.
And so,
at the time I had pronouns. That's what it was. He was speaking against. Never in the history of British common law have we. Yeah. Well, that was the big moment, turning point.
I think from my understanding of what Jordan was actually getting at, was it wasn't the fact that there's different pronouns or transgenderism or homosexuality or lesbian. It had nothing to do with someone's preference,
ideology or preference.
Yeah,
right.
It had to do with mandated speech. So that's the idea,
and criminalizing the non-use of.
Correct. Because then you don't have freedom of speech if you mandate speech, right? And that's what he was against. Yeah. And that's very Orwellian, very George Orwell, 1984.
Absolutely.
And that's scary shit.
Absolutely.
And that is not the sign of a free and democratic society, Nico,
Right,
when
right.
you are literally told what you must say and what you
Absolutely.
must think. That is
Absolutely.
actually the dictionary definition, the antithesis of what a
yeah.
free society is,
Absolutely.
right? So
As dictatorship.
to Jordan's point, Dr. Peterson, and I will still refer to him as Dr. Peterson
Absolutely.
because that man deserves that respect for his studies and his work.
Even though they kicked them out of the Ontario faculty of
The College of
the
Physicians
College
or
of
whatever,
Physicians. Yeah, whatever that means.
Well,
I mean,
and tell me that wasn't politicized as well, too,
obviously.
right? So,
I mean, these are the same people that
you know.
all signed and agreed to say nothing when it came to the whole forcing of the jab and stuff. Like, we know they're all corrupt and bought out, and I'll say that openly, honestly.
absolutely. So
we know we have a
you and I have
mutual
to.
friend who's a psychologist, a
Yes.
doctor. He ran the whole ward. I'm not going to mention his name because he would like the privacy, of course,
Yeah.
and for his own safety. But he ran the whole psychology department in
Mhm.
or psychiatry department
he
at Toronto General Hospital.
Mhm.
And we know for a fact, that's why I say that openly and honestly. Like, I have no problem to say that these institutions that we want to like trust and give faith that, you know, are upholding a certain value and integrity
Mhm.
are actually corrupt. They're all sold out, man. So it's like, no wonder all of this is happening, because if like, even when the people all come together, somehow it finds a way to.
That's a great point, man. Let me
Yeah,
expand
speak
on
to
that for a second.
please, yeah.
So the whole point you were saying about, you know, we're trusting our elected representatives to, you know, hold our best interests at stake. And we've seen a lot of things during
Yeah.
this Trudeau administration, the freezing of bank accounts, the
Oh
trucker
my
convoy. I mean, it's just been one thing after another, after another, after another, after another.
Seriously alarming.
Like, I'm not trying to be partisan. I'm coming on a live podcast. I'm not telling people who to vote for or anything else like that, okay? But you do need to vote. You need to exercise your right, okay?
Right.
Because, like, we literally, like, our people died for the right to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
to me,
right.
it's an affront to their memory to not take that opportunity when you go to the polls in October, November of 2025. All I'm suggesting, though, is when you do, take a look. Don't look at the person, whether you like them, you don't like them, you don't like the way they sound, their haircut,
Right.
Look at the track record, the platform, look at what it stands for, cast your vote, right? And let it be what it will be. I know where my political center is, and that's my business.
Right.
I'll vote in accordance with what I think we need as a country.
Right.
But to bring it all back to the housing, one thing that I was absolutely floored, I was shocked, Nico, and I didn't really get to see it until I was working as the director of development at that company in Markham, right? The level of taxation, bro, on the houses that we get approved here,
It's insane.
it's 30%, Nico. If you have $1 million townhouse,
right.
almost $300,000, and various methods and ways of taxation will end up going to various levels of government. Okay, between development charges, property taxes, Section 7s or community benefit charges, Section 37. Sorry, Section 7s is divorce laws. Something else.
Divorce law is different.
Well, we
yes,
can talk about that another time.
That's a whole separate episode. Yeah.
Your brother and I have talked
Yeah.
about that many times, but
so the 30% of the
Yeah.
$1 million home is just going to go on taxes.
in taxation. And if you want to make things more affordable, you need less government, Nico. I'm sorry, you do. Here's a point. My company that I work for owns assets, real estate, in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
Okay? We know where Dallas, Texas
Yeah.
is. Okay. So we know that that's a red state. Okay?
That is
So it's a
in
Republican state.
Republican, yeah.
Okay? Down there, Nico, there have been over 2.5 million people leave the state of California and move into Texas. Okay? On top of their border issues, right, with Mexico,
Right.
on top of their domestic population,
Right.
and they don't have a housing supply crisis Do you know why?
Why?
I'll tell you.
Why is that?
And you know why the average home down there in Texas is between 400 and maybe 550?
Why
You know
is
why? Because in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, if you put a complete application, a complete app in, and it's fully approved by your engineers, your architects, your lawyers, and everything, if that municipality doesn't give you an answer within 30 days, it's automatically approved.
that?
So they can build
I see.
faster, quicker, and with more efficiency
Right.
than we ever can.
I
Okay?
see.
Now, they also have different weather patterns down there. That helps, of
Sure,
course, too.
sure, yeah.
But my point is, if I
That's
was
a big
able to
deal,
turn
yeah.
my approvals around that bloody quick
Yeah.
and not have to wait in a complete market cycle,
Yes.
like I could literally have a federal election before I got approvals on one of my sites.
Jeez, yeah.
That's how long it takes. That's crazy.
Which means, like, by the time everything can completely change.
Thank you.
Anticipating.
a new government comes in, undoes everything that the
Undoes
old
everything,
government was working towards giving me my
Right,
approvals.
right.
So that 40-story tower, I was going to have 400 units come into the system at one price and be affordable to people to rent or buy.
Right.
Now
All
it
of a
gets
sudden it's
canceled,
canceled.
or it gets deferred or delayed. You see what I'm saying? And that's the problem,
That's
man.
crisis.
And guess what? 30% of that fee, Nico's going to those people.
Wow.
If you bring down those development charges, Nico, bring them right down. Do you know that if you buy a home in the city of Toronto in 416, there's 2 land transfer taxes.
Land transfer.
Yeah, LTT. Okay, so if you buy $1 million house, right, in 905 region, Richmond Hill, Aurora, Markham,
Sure.
Newmarket, King, Vaughan, doesn't matter.
Within the GTA.
You pay a land transfer tax to the province, roughly 1% of the purchase price.
Okay.
You go buy a home south of Steeles Avenue, you're paying almost 3%. You're paying 1.5% to the city of Toronto,
Okay.
Olivia
And then-
Chow,
So another.
and then
one,
you're paying
I see.
another 1.5% to the province. Now you factor the development charges on top of that. You factor all the property tax, Section 37s. You factor in community
Property
benefit.
tax is Section 37.
No, Section 37's another.
Which one's that?
So
Just curious,
section
just because, like, yeah, that's a
Section
obviously-
37s is it's expensive, Nico. There's a lot of money.
I'm
When
just curious because that number obviously for me is always.
Oh
pay
yeah,
attention, like,
you know what, man? I never even thought
no.
about that.
What's Section 37? You just said
Okay.
it's important. Let's talk about that.
Let's
'cause,
talk
like,
about that.
We're here to connect some dots, and we know that, like,
we got something here. We're
Right?
live.
Yeah.
People, we are live and direct. We're going
Yeah.
to connect the dot for you on this.
yeah, this isn't
All
like
right.
just some economist like gibberish. I mean, and I can hold this space because I know what we're gonna get to beneath all of this is not just some number jargon political stuff. I know who you are as a person, and I know you're conscious and you're aware. We just looked at your chart. Your north node is Scorpio.
Yes.
Like you're a dragon, and like so, and you come from all this Aryan moon, and you know, like
I'm also a Leo rising.
your little rising is why that's why you're here. No
Yeah,
problem. It's like
yeah.
you know your voice and your ability to
Got a bit of a ham in me.
charismatically. Yeah, and you've got your own podcast. Can you actually talk a little quickly?
Oh, shit. Yeah, thank
plug
you.
that,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am the host of Above the Line. It's a podcast that's on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn.
All the platforms. Yeah.
All the socials that's out there. We have various subject matter experts from the housing industry. Like I'm having various politicians come on our show
Amazing.
this year. I've had Altus Group. I've had owners of large property management companies, owners of development companies, developers, real estate agents who work at a very high commercial level. I have mortgage brokers. I have like engineers, architects. They come on the show
Amazing.
and we talk about the housing crisis and what we can do to fix it. Because I really believe in my heart, Nico, at the end of the day, you and I are like this, but we're coming to the same circle.
Sure.
You're an incredible artist. You're gifted.
Thank you.
You've got it. You've always had it in terms of having that linguist, that it factor,
Thank you,
which is
brother.
amazing.
It's
And it's
passion.
just, it's awesome to like spit rhymes with you and do that shit,
Purpose
right?
and- Oh, for sure, man. I know you got.
But you've got
to.
but you're not about, like you said, about bitches and riches. It's not
No,
that.
no.
It's about a social good, okay?
Yeah, social
right?
justice, man.
Like
Social
Chuck D,
good.
you know, like
Yes,
there's guys
yes.
with some meat behind their
Yes.
rhymes, right?
Yes.
Where
yes.
I'm doing that, but on a corporate side.
Yeah.
And that's what my podcast is about. We
Amazing.
have some fun on it. Like we play some games.
Amazing.
And I fuck with the guests a little bit.
So
you know,
for
stuff
those of
like
you,
that.
who are more interested in this and are in areas in your own careers that, like, obviously, this pertains more to you, definitely tune in, man, because this is something new, but it's right up on the scale as anything else that I would call the caliber of, not only charismatic and like as that rising Leo you are, you know what I mean? Like you're fun to listen to. You got just the right, passion towards it, but you have the knowledge, man, and you're edutaining. We're both edutaining in the sense that we're using that charisma and that, like, that flair, but not just to be like, hey, look at me. Like, like it's more about listen to me because I got some knowledge for you.
I got something to say, right?
Just something to say, and it's knowledge that's going to empower you. And I know we share that together.
100%.
So,
So
I wanted you to plug that.
Thank you for
and we'll put
plugging
the link as well.
above the line on all socials in your phone, right?
There you go.
Yeah, we're shooting our third episode on July 9th. We've got some heavy guests coming on that one, so we're looking forward to it.
So we're going to come back to the
Coming
section
back around.
37 because there's
Section
something
37. So when a developer gets an approval, Nico, to build a condo tower, okay?
Right.
There are a number of fees that they pay to the city. One of them is called a Section 37. Section 37 is a charge, a fee that the city says to the developer, okay, hold on. We approved you for 40 stories. But if you pay us this money, we'll give you the right to increase that 40 stories under a bonusing provision, which will give you another 4 stories, let's say, and more condo units for you to turn around and sell. And here's the
that
fee.
You were about to build either way. Yeah.
Correct. Right? Because remember, when condo developers or any developer goes to get their approvals, often the city isn't there to work with you or for you.
No.
They often work against you, right?
You, yeah.
We don't want you to build 40 stories. We only want 16 or 20 or whatever, right?
Right. Because they're also trying to regulate the amount of traffic within the community.
Yeah,
They
there's
gotta
urban
get
planning
permission,
guidelines.
right? Yeah, like you got to get permission from the local. Going on. So they have this like incentive. They'll be like, hey,
you pay us this money, we'll give you bonusing. But that Section 37 is $500,000 for the Runnymede Library, or $250,000 for the Young Boys Soccer Club, and it's supposed to be for a community or communal benefit. They've now changed that, so they don't call it a Section 37 anymore, although we still call it that. It's called a community benefits charge now, CBC.
Benefits charge.
Yeah. And that's what it is.
Does it go to the community eventually? Does it? I mean, or does this sound to me like just another way to, with the face of community benefit, just cash more.
Nico, there was times in the past where you heard stories about that, where you were like, you cut the check, and you were like, okay, where did that money go?
Now what? Yeah.
And the counselor in that area ends up with a $4 million cottage on Lake Rosso somehow, and you're like, right? But I think the government really clamped down on that. The province stepped in under the Doug Ford government and really made it much more transparent. So it's got to be spelled out where that money gets spent, and that's a good thing. Absolutely. So I'm in favor of that. Absolutely. But the point I'm making is, development brings revenue to the cities and the province. It creates jobs. It's needed. It has to be done rationally and compassionately. I agree. But the point is...
rationally and compassionately.
Rationally and compassionately. But it has to happen faster and quicker, because we're really sinking into a hole.
Right.
So what's the solution to all this?
Yeah.
How do
so
people?
now we've exactly. Let's
Yeah.
get some. Let's think of some solution-based thinking here.
So one of the things that the government did was say to people, okay, there's no such thing as an illegal basement apartment anymore.
An illegal basement apartment.
Yeah, remember back in the day with your pops, like we could renovate, but if you didn't have a separate entrance, it was an
Right.
illegal basement apartment. The city's going to come by and
right.
give you a stop work order. They're going to give you an order to comply, and you're going to lose your tenant in your basement and all that other. They're going to fine you, all that shit.
Right.
Done, gone.
That's gone.
I mean, your basement has to conform to standard building code, of course, and fire codes. You can't put people in a substandard place.
But there doesn't have to be a separate entrance, is what you're saying?
No, there still has to be
There
that,
still
because
does,
that's still a fire regulation. But the
Sure,
point is, even if you had all that before, but you didn't register it with the city, it was classified as illegal.
Oh, I see.
Because the city wants to know how many people living in your house, because when they do their taxes, Nico,
yes.
they tax it as a single family home.
Yes.
It's at one rate. If you've got a number of families living in your home, then they want to tax you at another rate.
Got it.
So now they've got rid of that.
These are the property taxes we're talking about.
Property taxes, yeah.
This is why you see all these families, these immigrant families coming in and living in like 3-4 families living in one house. I mean, God knows whether the government knows they are or not, but you're saying that was one of the things that were now obliterated. Now you have it's not illegal because they can tax more on it. They can make more.
Well, I mean, I think they know that we're in a serious issue right now in terms of housing. We don't have it. They know that they have to do something right now to like provide for people to go places. Right. So until we can get our development community back up and running, until the economy can work itself out with the interest rates and everything else, we have to get creative in terms of what are we going to allow people to build on their own properties as of right, which means no zoning bylaw amendment needed, no building permit. Go and do it today. And so that's a good news for our listeners that, have a detached garage that has maybe livable area, a basement with a walk up or a walkout or a side entrance. I mean, we've got generational issues too with our parents getting older and wanting to maybe stay in a separate place but still be with the family, but not in your face or whatever.
Yes.
These are all good things that I think we need to start. The idea, oh man, you got to have your own house and nobody else can live in it, or you're a loser if you don't have that. Yeah. I mean, we got to abandon that. We got to abandon that.
Absolutely.
We got to abandon that.
I mean, in Europe, it's very natural and normal.
100%.
You live with your folks. Why? So you can take care of each other, man.
It's generational. It's taking care of each other. But as long as you do it in a way where you can still maintain a degree of privacy,
that's it, man.
Then, man,
by all means,
why not? Yeah. And I think a lot of that starts with us.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Right.
The values that we hold, and that it's not trying to keep up with the Joneses. It doesn't mean anything that you even own it. It just matters that like you have shelter, you have community, you have support emotionally. Because in these times, like you said, if we zoom out with the lens, you know what I mean? We come out in the real big picture. We are in crazy times. We prophesized are. As it's called the Kali Yuga in the Hindi, in Sanskrit, based on the Yuga cycles, which are even bigger cycles than the Platonic years, which are based on the constellations of the Western zodiac. But what we are in, it's called the Kali Yuga, and it's the most dense. It's the darkest, most dense and dangerous part of it, because you have bronze, silver, gold. There's one more.
Is it platinum?
No, bronze, silver, gold, and I think Kali it's not. It's like iron. That's it. Kali is the iron. It's the age of the iron. And then what's after this is the golden age. Now, to get to that golden age is the big question. Because even the idea of the Aquarius, we're moving into this age where now we're all going to really level up, because we've completed a full 25,920 year cycles, which is the Platonic year. But we are in a very dark times according to the yuga cycles, and it's not going to be like right away. But the question is it a matter of time, or is it a matter of mind? And going back to that, like what you just said, the values, and that we change our mind, humankind, in from thinking that like it's humiliating to still be living, you know, with your folks or whatever it is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's the big picture thing. And so the solution is really, we can at any moment change our mind, literally, and therefore how we're relating to, and therefore culturally we can start seeing the solutions will present themselves, man, once we start getting more lenient and start giving ourselves a little bit more permission to not feel so small just because we can't keep up with the Joneses.
I think there was a stigma surrounding like the idea of communal living for a while, or, you know, oh, you guys couldn't make it work, you all have to live together.
Yeah.
I think that has to change. I think the idea that there could be a number of families or number of people living in one property, sharing it, I think it's needed right now. I think we need to revisit that. And I think it's good for our society. When we came from a global lockdown where we were put in our houses and told not to be within 6 feet of each other, and you know, don't
even
be
within
our
houses.
Like, I think that's like us actually healing as people to let's start to be together again, man. Zoom calls have their place, and Zoom went crazy when you know, their stock went up like as everybody was doing it. Nobody wants to go back to the office anymore. Everybody wants to work from home, and it's like maybe we need some human contact again.
Sure.
I don't think we were built to be islands and silos on our own.
That's right.
You know, like, I understand that there are different personality types. Some people need to find interaction with other people draining. You know, obviously I'm the opposite. I get, you know, energy off of it, right?
You're an extrovert like me. Or not necessarily that you are that. We're all on a scale, but some of us are a little bit more of one than the other. We're all introverted and at times, but then
I have my moments.
Sure, absolutely. You need to recharge, no doubt. Some people just take a lot longer to recharge their social batteries versus others who, like ourselves, can really like charge within the communal. Yeah,
I wanted to connect this dot for you because this is something you brought up earlier in the podcast, and I kind of wanted people to know. I don't want to be divisive, but I think this is important. Nico and I did live together for a while in
basement apartment.
Yeah,
very tight.
In Aurora. Yeah, during very, very stressful, tenuous times during the pandemic.
Or scamdemic, sorry.
Yeah, the scamdemic. Yes. Correct me. As you know, so my father became terminally ill during that time, and you know, it was yesterday's 3 years ago we lost my dad yesterday.
Wow.
You were there at the funeral with your brother and Dav, right? So, during that time, it was a very weird period for a lot of people for a lot of reasons, and I am one of those people that did take the jab, and I regret it wholeheartedly.
Thankfully, physiologically, you didn't obviously have the effects that some people did.
I've been blessed. No shortage of just blessings in my life. You know that, and I've been very open with you about that. You know what I went through personally, Nico. There were guns held to my head to do it on a number of different fronts, of course, right? Yeah. And I think in a normal circumstances, with the normal thought and time to rationalize what is this foreign substance I'm putting in my body, if left to my own vices, not a chance I would have done it.
No.
Do I regret doing it? Yes, I do. Am I angry about it? Am I upset about it? I feel I was duped. I feel I was lied to, or deceived.
No one wants to feel that.
Yeah. So there's. Like, am I angry at the?
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I know you. I've seen you throughout the process, and because thankfully you're blessed enough that it didn't biologically affect you, you've been able to find peace with the fact that you did it for what reasons a lot of people did, like you, for reasons that you had to. Otherwise, see, that's how it was designed. It was designed to make it seem like you can't. You have no other choice.
I wouldn't have been able to see certain people in my life that were very important to me, as you know.
In your case, your own children. Some people wouldn't be able to pay their mortgage or continue to keep their job. So
I think getting out there, living communally, or having the ability to be with people is a way for us to heal again.
Yes.
And I think that's really important. So that's me connecting that dot.
Yes.
And
so
I don't want anybody to feel shamed if you did take the jab or you didn't take the jab, or you see somebody walking on the street that's wearing a mask and you're like, what the
yes,
like, what are you
why?
But
I don't
why
even
are
speak up
you
anymore.
like
I used to always speak up. I'd always have words for everyone who was still
Yeah.
wearing the mask, because I seen it as like a religious symbol, and the new religion was this great reset, new world order that is the new world religion, and that's how I saw it. But then I had to like digress from that and just stop stressing about that, because whatever, you want to wear a mask, makes you feel good. I mean,
it's tolerance. I think I'm
That's
in
it.
my older age.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a little bit more tolerant of some things, and I'm getting
yeah.
more intolerant of other things.
Because the
I'm
idea is
picking
that
my
you don't-
battles.
Yeah,
right?
choosing your battles. You're not telling me what to wear or not wear.
I asked everybody to please be kind because I am not an artist, but I have something if you'd
You
like.
are a poet, though. I think you are a poet, and you definitely know it. It's just maybe you
And
haven't
if you don't
been
know,
able to.
now you know.
Now you know, yeah. Well, because what is the difference between an artist and who's celebrated and one who isn't? Is just the courage to put your stuff out there. And recently, you've been putting your stuff out there, man, and now you're about to share and put something out here, which you wrote specifically.
All right. So, everyone, I wrote for my brother Nico here a poem. I do poetry.
And I heard this, and it is dope.
Thank you.
It is dope.
So, without further ado, I'm going to read something. A poem written for Nico on Connect the Dots. Who am I, and really, who are you? There's an answer to that I never knew. What makes me tick and what makes me move is an age-old question. Can you feel my groove? For we are but complex beings of spirit, flesh, blood, and bone. And let it be known that neither man nor woman can live on bread and word alone. A thirst for knowledge is great, some would say, but knowledge without deed is work without pay. For to put into practice what it is that you know is what can help others we love continue to grow. Life is a train with its twists and turns as the PA pops, as none of us truly know when nor where our ride stops. Astrology whispers to us the intricacies of our inner being, while science and religion argue over doctrine versus theory and its meaning. I'm not here to profess nor to choose one over the other, but I am open to all lessons of ways to love from my sister and my brother.
Amen.
I do believe that on the same spectrum exists love and hate the same. But in order to correct our current course, love always wins the game. It was my friend Nico who once said, to know without the sweat was to be burdened with knowledge that others would simply forget. I can remember early mornings driving in the car with Nico in the car, where we would argue and spit free rhymes, arguing who would grab that next bar. And now here we are, soul brothers united once again. Yeah. I had to pause for a second.
Visual, once again.
Having different podcasts with different themes, but all to the same end. As I sit here in this podcast with you, my brother Nico, I get the chance to dive deep into aspects of my very own ego. To relearn lessons taught to me by family, like my mom and my pops. So won't you join me, my people, while we let Nico connect the dots. There you go. That's it.
I'll just say, not Nico connect the dots, but just remind you all that this is a communal effort, that no dot is connected alone. This is a process that's happening together in the conversation, And first of all, dude, the fact you even took the time to sit and write that if you ever say again you're not an artist or you're not a I'm gonna
We'd have trouble.
I'm gonna throw you in that lake when it's cold in the winter.
Oh shit! Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was incredible, man. Like that's so sharp.
Thank you.
It's the precision. It's like the words with, yeah, man. Like, cause I've known you now for over a decade.
Oh shit! Longer now.
Longer, man. Well over a decade. And time is like the ultimate, measure of character. You don't know somebody until you've seen them over the phases, right? The seasons, that life's seasons, especially when they're in crisis. And you've seen me in a time of my crisis where I think the biggest one of them all, because I've been in a few crises, and that's part of the warrior's path. We chose that. Some people, I see it like a fish, using the Pisces example. This is all just one big ocean of spirit, love, mind. Love is the stream you want to follow, but it's just this experience is just this big ocean. Now we're all different kind of fish. Some are like this. They're taking it nice and easy, They're keeping their oscillations, because the oscillation's the principle of polarity and Hermetic wisdom. You can't escape it. You can't evade it. It's going to be back and forth. But some of us come in here and we be like this. And those are the courageous ones. Those are the warriors who dare to really experience the opposite extremes and not just, coast in between. It's nice to coast in between.
Like making waves, man, right?
Yeah, making waves, riding the waves, like really like surfing. And that's the way of the warrior. And yeah, man, so to go back, there's been many crises, but like the one that we both lived through was during the pandemic, which was a collective crisis. And also it was on a microcosmic scale. We were experiencing this very serious crisis. And you, you just held that space.
Early morning car rides, remember that?
The car rides in the morning, early in the morning. And there's something about the energy in the morning. There's a reason why Tai Chi practitioners, they go out there and they practice their Qigong, or even yogis, they wake up really early.
Early, yeah.
Because we experience that, man. There's a different clarity. And even though I was doing something as crazy as rebar, building crosslinks in Toronto, when I should have been training the Titans, because that was that big opportunity I was just about to come into, there was a clarity, as this too is part of the process. And I'm grateful. If there was anyone that I was going to share that with, it was you, bro, because you made me realize it's honorable and it's worthy. It's a worthy fight. Fighting the good fight, I think, is something, when we look even at your chart, is something you're very familiar with. You know?
You gotta pull up my chart. What did my chart say again? I was like,
your moon was in Aries, and your Chiron was also in Aries. Chiron's the wounded healer, and that makes for your karma is a lot to do with being Aries as the fighter, courageously willing to fight. However, like recognizing perhaps being Moon Aries, like almost like a warrior in your past life, being able to choose the right battle was the biggest thing. And in your if you look at your nodal axis, which is another aspect of our chart that's very important. I think some people, astrologers, only look at that, just what's your north node and south node, and really focus alone just on those.
Not
two.
like your sun sign or whatever.
Yeah, no, exactly. They look at your whole, because your north node's your true north, so it's like where your whole chart's pointing. But in your case, if you see it as pointing to Scorpio, which is like really like to go deep into the truth, no matter how inconvenient you want to confront that truth. And if that's the north node, then your south node opposite that is Taurus in this case. So in a past life, you might have already experienced, like, Taurus is like materialism in its greatest. Like, you've manifested great things. It's like the age of Taurus. We think of King Tut, the times where there was like, worshiping the golden calf, which is the bull, Taurus the bull. But like in a past life, you might have already had reached that. You'd achieved that. And now coming into this, you achieved that because you conquered something. Like, I feel like that's what I intuit with you. It's like you courageously fought and conquered, and thus had that that golden sort of castle, like Taurian, like, wow, you established that. But in this life, you want to establish, and you're going for more like truth, hence the dragon energy, hence Pisces, recognizing that the truth is recognizing that there's two within you, and recognizing how to efficiently and effectively ride these waves. You know, you don't have to fight every fight. There's only certain fights that are worth even fighting for. Because again, going back to even me, like, I can relate it to my name, Nicolaus, victory of the people. To me, the only time I'm victory is when I'm for the people, not of the people. If I'm any type of victory or anyone worthy of following, it's because I am being that which I believe. I'm being it. I'm embodying it. And that's where that whole recently sharing, and you mentioned it in your poem. Can you bring up the line again where you said, like, you spoke it so eloquently, man? It was about, like, unless you sweat, the burden. Like,
that one.
That part there. Like, I was sharing as I was coming back from a workout, the recognition that knowledge is such a burden. And unless I'm sweating, don't even trust anything coming out of my mouth, because I have no right to speak.
That's exactly what it was. It was my friend Nico who once said, to know without the sweat was to be burdened with knowledge that others would simply forget.
Yeah. Either simply forget or wouldn't get. And the reason they wouldn't get is, like, I always
because you weren't sweating.
Exactly. Because the difference between preaching, which we all are seeing more than ever with the portal of, you know, your social media and the ability to just share and, and, you know,
now
regurgitate
you're hitting home.
and regurgitate, right?
Look in the mirror, right? The hardest fucking truth. Like, dude, you know, I had to drop the weight. I lost the weight or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I mean, you remember at one point I called you for
you called me out on it.
Yeah, I called you in.
Fuck you, Nico.
I want to say ever out. I always say, like, I changed the wording, not out. I don't want to call you, oh, you're on my team. I called you in. I called you forth. Because I can't win unless we all win. And I needed to see my fellow Spartans as I see all the closest people in my life, me having that Spartan lineage. I needed to, like, you know, remind you, like, yo, man, you're declining here. You're
soft,
losing
baby.
yourself. You're getting soft, literally, viscerally. Yeah. But, like, you turned it around, man. And you came here, and I was so happy. Remember, I told Julie.
Yeah, you came to the door. What the fuck? Where's the rest of you? I'm like, I left it at the bakery, man. It's gone.
So,
it's gone.
May everyone recognize, if there's anything here that, like, even if you connected all the dots in the world and we got it, you know, amazing, we get it. It doesn't matter, like Bruce Lee said, unless you apply. And when we're training, when we're exercising, that's when we're essentially raising our vibration.
And you know that I do it first thing in the morning, right?
Yes, which is when you want to train. Exactly. Take advantage of that yang energy.
Yeah, man.
That's why the Qigong and, you know, the practitioners, that's when you see them. They're outside at 5, 6 in the morning. Even come home and nap if you need to, you know what I mean? But see, our days all governed, the Gregorian calendar and everything, all the time has been totally twisted. Even kids, they shouldn't be going first thing in the morning to school. They should be going to the park, playing, sweating, touching things, you know, exploring.
Isn't that, you know, hold on, let me have that for a second. So one of the people at work said to me, like, fuck, like, you get in here and you're like, your energy, like, you've too much energy for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm borderline in sales, so I need that shit. But I get up at 5 a.m. I leave the house at 6. I'm on the gym floor at 7 with Dimitri, right?
Dimitri, yeah.
And you know, I'm in the shower at 8 and I'm in the office at 9. So I've been through a whole bunch of stuff to raise my endorphins, raise everything, like, to be ready for my day.
That's right.
How ready am I for my day if I wake up at 8 o'clock and I stumble into work and I got like sleep in my eye and I'm like, you know, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
So for me, it just makes, and then everyone's different, and I totally get that. That's what works for me, right? And I had to look in the mirror, do some self-reflection, and be like, Matt, if you want to talk to people about this stuff, you might need to do it too, right?
Because you can't speak no truth if you can't keep the integrity that the truth requires you to keep in order to speak. There's no business in leading if you can't lead your own self. And you said it's not for everybody. I disagree, and maybe that's just the hard guy that I could be. I feel all of us societally, I mean, maybe when you reach a certain age it's different. Our elders, you know, we need to respect our, you know, are there for their wisdom, and we're here to listen. And even them, though, you see men at 60, 70 that are totally ripped. And not ripped that you have to be ripped as in aesthetically ripped, but they're in shape, man. They have a self-dominance and a certain energy aura that you cannot replace and you can't just buy. So the problem now is that we have people have the ability to just buy their happiness and their dopamine, and it's okay. You assume that as you get older, you know what I mean, you're supposed to kind of, but you look at all the men in today's day and age and they're all posturally like this. So they're spilling their sacral energy energetically. Their postures got their, you know, like this. And it's just, that's not the way. Like if you think of Socrates, he said, it is our duty, man's duty, to realize and achieve the full potential of his physique. And you know what I mean? And that resonates so much with me, not just because I'm Greek and I'm Spartan Greek specifically. And I recognize that we don't win unless we win first over ourselves, like Plato said. But like, I feel we don't win unless we all win. So first it starts with ourselves, leveraging the forces of nature like you're doing first thing in the morning, because then you're clearing out all of the stuff, man, like all the garbage. You're taking out the garbage essentially is what you're doing, and you're just bringing in, especially if you're doing a proper training program where you're posturally aligning and addressing the parts of your body that naturally all of us have due to, you know, some type of sprains, even from childhood. The body remembers everything, so there's always going to be some like compensation here and there. But if you're in a good program with a trainer who knows what he's doing, like Dimitri, for example, or, you know, myself, I'm here, this is what I do as well. I train people to retune their body, because the body is an instrument, and thus it doesn't matter, you know, whether you're playing for the greatest audience, whether you have the greatest, you know, guitar, if it's out of tune,
it's out of tune.
It just sounds like shit, man. So most importantly, we get in tune. Like life is a music sheet. So getting in tune and then getting on beat. And that's it. And that's where we find each other, right? Like resonance is that you and I found each other. And then there was all these other synchronicities. You knew my brother from a long time before.
Yeah.
You know?
I knew your brother from high school, man.
Yeah,
like,
because another warrior over there, you know what I mean? Like just, that's the law of resonance. And
well, it's actually, it was through your cousin that I knew your brother, right? Because I'm older than Phil, right?
Which cousin?
Costa.
No, I don't know if he's
not a cousin,
blood cousin, but
he's
close
Bobby's
family friend.
Best friend.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like
yeah.
A paisan, right?
Paisan, yeah. You could say that, like really close inner circle. Yeah, but that's a lot of resonance, man. Like there's no coincidences under the sun. I feel like it's only two coincidences to coincide, and to coincide in mathematics means there's a relationship with the coefficient, and the relationships have to do with angles. Right? Just like in the zodiac, you look at the actual chart, and we're looking at aspects, not only about where the planets were in which constellation, but then how they're aspecting each other, meaning what angles are they. That's why it's a geometric, if you look here.
Well, I was wondering, like, there's like lines on it. Right? You see that? Yeah.
Those lines are showing now there's based on the degrees of each of these planets within the constellations, they're aspecting each other, either as opposition, 180 degrees opposite, or if they're a trine, it's 60 degrees, which mathematically is a very favorable aspect. If it's a square, 90 degrees, then there's like a karmic challenge there, but it's very rewarding if you can face it and replace and embrace, then replace the challenge as like, poor me, like this is hard, with like, oh, wicked, that's why I was challenged with this. Like David, you know, as he's chipping himself away out of the rock, kind of thing.
It's getting rid of that victim mentality too.
Yeah,
because that victim mentality, dude, it's so bad on so many levels, and we've all had it. Like I had it at one point, like, oh, poor me, woe was me, this fucking happened to me. That, and you remember Danny? I remember one time I was DeSantis. I was with him one time, and he's like, dude, you got to stop that shit.
Shake that off.
Nobody gives a fuck. They only care how you overcame it.
That's right.
So if all you are is just a walking story of what happened to you, that's a boring ass record. That's just on skip.
That's it.
Like, okay, that happened. And?
Yeah. And you're only going to thus attract other victims. Yeah. Because misery loves company. Consciously or unconsciously, that's it.
Bang on.
Yeah. We want to hear how you overcame it. That's it, man. And that's why even in my workshop with the kids, when I'm doing falling and getting back up, and I show them all these really cool different ways. As a stunt guy, first I get their attention because I do a crazy fall. Yeah, because that's what we learn in.
You do a flip and land, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, like a crazy, like realistic looking break fall, and then I'll like just pop back up doing a kip with no hands. And they're like, what? It's like, yeah, look, watch. Imagine imagine here, pretend you kicked me. They go, kick. I take the fall and I fall down. But watch this. And I like back roll and I'm on my feet in seconds. The idea is like, yeah, we're all going to fall. But I don't care. Even if you want to dramatize your fall and make it really glorious, because that's kind of very Leonian, to be honest. Like,
that's the gymnast in you coming out, Nico.
Sure,
man.
Well, playing with gravity,
too, right?
You know what I mean? So that when you do fall, it's like, whoa, that was a really well taken fall. You wouldn't even think that was a fall. And that's to transmute, that's to transduce. And that's why I believe even gymnastics is the most important sport of them all, because you learn self-dominance. You get the flexibility, the agility, the power, all of the elements, which I call in FitOp, the 7 elements for self-development, but for self-dominance as well. Because once you can dominate this self, then you can dominate the inner bitch that keeps on playing the victim.
And that's such a great metaphor for life, because life will knock you down at times. So what are you going to do? You're going to get knocked down and lie there and bitch about it? Or are you going to do a back roll and pop up with your springs and go, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but fucking good one.
And there's so many ways. There's the back roll up. There's all kinds. And that's what the workshop is. And that's what that exercise is. It's like one by one, we let each participant, sort of whoever volunteers, we don't force them, but whoever volunteers, show me how you get back up. There's so many different ways to get back up.
That's cool.
And then when you show us, then the rest of us have to do what you did.
Oh, they got to like mimic it? Like monkey see, monkey do? Like you did that shit in my turn?
It's leadership.
Yeah.
So you are being vulnerable. You're courageously showing us that you're willing to be in the center of it. Because this is circle formation. Yeah. This is right before we do showtime, which is a breakdancing circle. That's when everyone just gets to showcase.
That's cool.
But the idea is that like before that, recognize, because part of my story was that like I had an injury from breakdancing because I fell trying to do a move and being a breakdance battle, trying to win over the other guy versus win over myself. When I had that fall, that was the injury that awoken the great teacher that then became what I created, my modality of training the body in a sense that wasn't just working out, but working in, yin and yang, you know what I mean? To become like the excellence that I feel like Bruce Lee and any of these people, you know what I mean, that we look at,
absolute master.
Achieved, right? So, but yeah, that's before that we do the fall in, get back up, and also allows them to sort of have the opportunity to feel like take the lead, and the rest of us are going to learn from you. I want everyone to have that opportunity to recognize that at any point you can just be the leader. All it takes is being willing to be seen and ridiculed, because when you're going to be seen, you'll be ridiculed. When you're seen, you're also going to be judged. But remember, the ridicule, the judgment, all of that is that whole 3-finger theory. It's all to do with the other person. And I think this is where the Leo energy, which you have, and this is why, there's no doubt you're going to kill this podcast, because you have actual knowledge to share, but also you don't care when people are hating on you. Those 3 fingers are pointing back at them, and it has nothing to do with you. So you can continue to show up and do what you're supposed to do, because that's what we are all supposed to do, is show up. And when people call you a show off, I always tell them, remember, that's only because their show is off.
Oh, that's a good one.
You know what I'm saying? Like, life is a show
off. It's because your show is off.
Your show is off. So you see me as the show off because I'm showing up, because life's show time. And that's where we go from the workshop exercise. It's an edutainment workshop, the FitOp edutainment workshop, basically. But the last thing before the affirmations are yoga cool down, which is essentially going through these different asanas, they're called in yoga, which are positions, the warrior one, and we have different like confirmations and affirmations. But before that is showtime, which is where we're all getting to show up, whoever has the courage to. And usually the people who had the courage to get up and teach the falling and getting back up, they would never have shown up in a showtime scenario. But because they had the opportunity to show up in an exercise that kind of is teaching you humility, how to deal with the fact that you might trip and in front of everyone fall on your face. But that's why I'll even show them, like, there's different also ways of falling. How do you get up from face down? How do you get up from on the side? Pretend you fell and you're on your back. Learn, and this is what we do in gymnastics. We learn how to experience every angle and every possibility of a fall, every possibility, you know what I mean? And then we learn how to just come out of it, because that's what gymnastics is, self-dominance.
Gracefully.
Yeah, gracefully. Exactly. The word itself, gymnastics, it means gymnos. It comes from the word gymnos, which means naked. Naked. And they actually performed the gymnastics, the Olympics back in the day in ancient times. It was only men that would compete, and they were naked because it represented, I get it now, it's a metaphor for you were stripping all the layers of the mask, all the layers of the ego, and thus recognizing we're all equal. It didn't matter, you know what I mean? Like who was big, strong, who was thick, long. It had nothing to do with more than who was performing.
There was jokes there, but I was, you know,
you can drop
I'm leaving that
all
out, man.
Yeah, you can drop all kinds. I remember one of my trainers, he's like, remember, the tall guy always, you know, and I'm like, whatever you need to feel better about yourself, the key is that you'll never feel better about yourself than if you actually show up for yourself every day consistently in your practice. Yeah. That's when you access
the self-discipline, bro.
Yeah, that's when you access what people like Bruce Lee accessed. And though he sadly left us very young, his soul not only R.I.P. rests in peace, it'll return in power. I always say it's not just rest in peace, return in power and prosperity. Because a soul that conquered won't be afraid to again courageously come back to this earth plane and do it again.
You, man, you know, so I told the viewers, obviously, I'm not nearly as well versed in, you know, astrology, esotericism, other things that you have like a
as I'm not in all of the housing and all.
I literally said that to everyone. I said like I'm on the housing side, so I've got a question that I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, and that is, like, there have been moments in my life, like I'm admittedly I'm Irish Catholic. That's where my background, my upbringing is, right? But I'm a little more worldly, okay? So there have been times where I swear to God, I'm in a place I've never been in, but I know I've been there. Like I feel like I've been. So is this like reincarnation? What is this? Yeah. Like, do you believe? Like, I do. Does a soul come back? Like, how does this work, bro?
No one can
explain this shit to
me. No one can
I don't get it.
I can't explain it any better than I think once.
But you know what I'm talking about?
I do
right?
believe in it, and I know what you're talking about. Absolutely. Okay. And the way I understand it, my mind, my soul, my spirit, and perhaps my moon is in Scorpio, and I always attribute that as like my past life. And you should get this because of the dragon, Eastern zodiac sign that you are. The dragon or the Scorpio represents the Ouroboros is the name for this dragon eating its own tail. Which corresponds, Ouroboros is the name or the term for the symbolic. You see it. It's the dragon eating its own tail.
Yeah,
and it's also apparently represents this Milky Way galaxy, and it's this idea that there's no beginning, no end, and it's this constant cyclical. And if you just look at like water, the element, as to how it goes in different forms, from ice to the liquid, you know, to then the vapor.
The vapor,
but it's still H2O, but it's a completely different life form every time. So if the essence is H2O and you think of that as your soul, right, then even though we go from ice to water, and then these are different lives physically. So I believe that. To me, it makes sense. I have memory too, different places sometimes. And I mean, one was when I was suicidal, standing on a bridge, bro, and I was like, I remember being there before. I'm like, I arrived to this same place. I'm not doing it this time, because I looked down and I saw my body continue falling after I hit the ground. It don't end there.
Wow.
It don't end there. Like, you think you're taking your life. I'm out of here. Fuck this. Meanwhile, you hit the ground. Your soul kept falling. I saw that all in that moment. And I wasn't going to go and deal with that again, because where it falls to is you go from human down to animal, from the animal down to maybe amphibian, or, you know, then it's like reptilian, and then it's like insect, and then it's like plant, and then it's like just a fucking rock or a single-celled organism. But like, there is this whole hierarchy of how consciousness and sentience can be expressed or experienced. And for us to have the human experience, it is like the highest, most honorable thing, man. We have free will. We are now literally God experiencing himself as Matt Garnet,
right?
As Nico Sofianos. And thus we have the literally, and that's why I know,
made in his image, right?
yes.
So-
And I know religious institution doesn't want to hear us refer to ourselves as gods and goddesses, and it is a dangerous thing to call us, because then you have the spiritual egotism happening, which is running rampant. No
what they
doubt.
call the God complex.
The God
right?
complex,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. And they foresaw that. They prophesized, beware the age of false prophets. What's going to happen is once all this esoteric, hidden, forbidden knowledge comes to
And
surface.
I think that's very rampant in Hollywood, Nico.
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh,
Especially
buddy.
when people are given that kind of celebration.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of attention.
Yeah, you know
is
what I mean by
dangerous.
that, right? We've talked about
There's a
that.
couple things, man. When we talk about Holly weird, as I love to hear people describe it now these days.
Holly weird?
Holly weird, yeah. I still love calling it Hollywood. I just love to let people know. If you don't know by now, the wood of the holly tree, which is actually in Ireland, ancient Celtic times, they used that wood to use the wands they created.
The shillelaghs too. They used it for
What's that?
a shillelagh was something that the Irish police used, because there's not a lot of trees in Ireland.
Okay.
So they would where the branch actually goes into the trunk, they'd cut it out, they'd dip it in tar, and they'd use that as a bat and beat you with it.
Wow.
Yeah, the Irish shillelagh.
So control, tools of control.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was the holly tree, apparently, that they were using this wood that was, it had auspicious characteristics, and it would help them do their magic of entrancing human beings. And here we find ourselves in a time where the name of the most powerful, maybe aside from Bollywood, which personally it's all really pretty cheesy stuff that they're putting out. I mean, the other parts of the world, they do incredible shows, even like, you see some of the stuff in the Asian part of the world. But nothing's as cool and influential to me as Hollywood on this planet. But of all names, the one place geographically that has the most influence over us in terms of what's cool and how we want to fit in and how we're so seduced to want to be like and influenced by is Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it's like the big old magic wand. And we know they're working, it's a trifecta. Hollywood, the CIA, and apparently NASA. That's the third one. That's the kicker. That's coming up now big
NASA,
time because NASA is how we continue to think that we're not on a plane where there's a firmament. Firmament is the term for it, and which is apparently it's even in the Bible, meaning like there's this dome. Now the idea that like that dismisses that planets are globes, or that we are on a globe, that this plane that we're on is, or this planet that we're on is globular. Man, it's an argument I can't really even begin to touch. I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole because there's so much on both sides.
So do you believe that it is confirmed now that there is other life out there that has come to Earth?
I believe that since 37 was
Interesting, 37.
yeah, and it was around 37 latitude that Roswell lands on the planet. Again, 37. I do believe that what happened since then, that there are places like Area 51, and what happened then was, I think, one of the first major they captured a UFO with extraterrestrial bodies, sentient beings in them, and they brought it in and they started like studying them, and reverse engineering them. And apparently now a lot of the UFOs we're seeing are the ones we've created because they reverse engineered, they figured out the technology. But no question, there are extraterrestrial beings, I believe, that have come here. But more importantly than them, we need to consider how many intraterrestrial beings there are.
What does that mean, intra?
Intra, that here within this planet. Extra means from beyond, right? Beyond terrestra, as in terra, as in the planet. Extraterrestrial, but there's intraterrestrial. There's a whole, what's happening in Antarctica? Like you're not allowed to go anywhere
or like
near
the Amazon forest, or they say it's a completely different world below the sea, bro.
That's what.
Like
that's
there's
another
creatures
one,
you don't
ocean.
even know of.
Alien as it gets, man. Just you don't have to look any further than the ocean. You just said it. But Antarctica, like Hitler and a lot of these other people were obsessed with Antarctica. And why is it so forbidden? No one can go. They say that is where you go into, and there's the entire inner Earth. So intraterrestrial aliens and stuff like this.
Hold on, help me out here. Antarctica is the southern hemisphere, like below Argentina, like down, down there, or the Arctic is the North Pole up top.
I'm not sure geographically.
I always get it.
But the flat Earth shows you that Antarctica. If you ever go to Antarctica, you see it's like this massive wall for like just kilometers, miles and miles. And what they're saying is, if you think of the fact that there is a flat Earth, that's the edge, and it's all ice. again, these are concepts and things that I don't overthink about and contemplate, because I realize they take me out of focus of what's really important. And already being an ADHD brain, which we are, the neurodiverse, we know we're hopeless if we don't focus. So what we focus on expands, and it's very important, because our ability is actually our disabilities, our ability. It's our superpower. We can razor sharp focus. But I've done that, and I've gone down rabbit holes that serve nothing other than further obsession or insecurity that we've been so lied to. And that's why, going back to this trifecta, CIA, Hollywood, and NASA.
NASA. I could see CIA
those three
and
work
Hollywood.
together to create the MK Ultra freaking spell that we're all under. That they've been testing on since the Holocaust, man. They've been testing on human beings anytime they have the opportunity to further go in. And how do we hijack this experience where we can continue to keep these people under our command? Because God forbid that the human being recognizes it's a spiritual being having a human experience, because then it will wake up. And that was what the Matrix was about.
I was having this conversation the other day, and it's really interesting. I think Joe Rogan touched on it once. I'm not sure, but it's okay. If you look at history, right? So the Second World War, right? Hitler's rise to power in Germany, it was coming in the 30s. That was a time of depression, like great global depression, right?
Right.
The stock market crash, all that stuff happened.
Yeah, yeah.
The the
Late
dirty
20s,
30s, the roaring 20s. So, it led people to be open and susceptible to some kind of perverted way of, demonifying a certain, population or persons and rationalizing acts against them, right?
Totally.
Being the Jewish people, right?
Yes.
And so when you look at this and you look at where our world is headed right now,
right,
and you look at the tensions that are going on
in
the world and the global inflation and you'll own nothing and be happy and all these other things, I think you'd have to agree with me that it is a really scary time.
It is, man.
Some people could be indoctrinated
Yes.
very easily right now.
And we see it.
And I think that's why podcasts like this are so important and kind of give people, whoa, give yourself a shake for a second, man.
Yeah.
Let's just take a breath and kind of question things here.
And question, exactly.
Yeah, man. Don't get so partisan, right?
Yes. Zoom out a bit, because even when you think of the political idea that like these are like left and right, they're the left and right sides of the wings, basically, of the eagle, which is the phoenix, which is an esoteric symbol. You see it printed on every dollar bill. And what it is thus an illusion that there's a left and a right. What there is this this elite 1%, you know what I mean, of people that are running the whole show here. And the only way they can continue to keep us within this simulation to think we have any kind of free will and power is by constantly keeping division. So whether it's what's happening at the Gaza Strip now with the, or whether it's Black Lives Matter, you know what I mean, whether it's using color, whatever it is, now it's even like, non-binary, it's constantly just keeping division. And that's how we're trapped in this psychological prison. And
I think the division thing, Nico, has been something they've used for forever. It's to divide and conquer, distract the people so we can
divide and conquer,
acquire more wealth or whatever it is, right?
That's it.
And I really feel like it knows no bounds, whether it's transgenderism, which is the thing now, or whether it's it used to be sexual orientation before that, or if it was white and black, or
it'll
it was
always
Asian,
be something.
There's always something that they use to, you're for this? Well, then I can't talk to you.
Exactly.
And it's like, we're people.
And if I can't talk to you about something, then the biggest problem is, and to kind of come to the wrap of this, is the only way that we can come to the truth is by talking. The word news is an abbreviation for north, east, west, and south. And it represents the colloquial way of coming together from all directions so we can have a discussion. Because the news isn't something you tell or see on TV. It's something you discuss by cross-referencing everyone's perspectives. And this is where the whole premise of Project Universe is. And essentially now, which Project Universe is now evolved to what this podcast is connecting the dots. You don't have to be a rapper and be able to express your thoughts so eloquently. Not everyone has that skill. It's tough to even do what you just did is difficult. Not many people have that, and that's what Project Universes was, trying to like come together with all these different rappers and sing about and rap about these global, very important, events that took place, whether it was 9/11, so that we can cross-reference, take everyone's perspective from the north, east, west, and south, and see that, and here's the quote, that truth doesn't exist in any one perspective. However, it emerges as the patterns observed within the collective. So the more perspectives that we get within the collective, the more dots that we can zoom out to and consider and factor into this big picture that we're all just collectively, humanity ourselves, are trying to be able to see. The more we can zoom out and see and cross-reference, the more we'll start to see the patterns, and that's the truth.
Connect the dots.
That's connecting the dots. But the only way that can happen is if we calmly collect our mind, and then if we also learn, we become symbol literate. Symbol is the language of nature. Is number and symbol.
They don't want you to do that because and
it's
a distracted population is a obedient population.
Yes.
Right? That can't see the dots being
sports,
connected.
Right? You got lotto and just constantly keeping them distracted. Bread and circus. Ancient Rome times, it was the Colosseum to keep them constantly entertained and preoccupied. There's a book called The Celestine Prophecy that talks about this time. And it talks about the reason why, and this is a time that happens, it's cyclical. And those are the words in the new track. Stay tuned, guys. It's called 33 Degrees. But it's cyclical. It's biblical.
Guys, 33 Degrees. Man.
Can't wait.
Oh, that's
featuring Indigo Prophet.
Wow.
Yeah, he's actually coming in tomorrow to the studio. We're going to finish it.
That's cool.
That's coming really soon to a news feed near you. But it's cyclical and biblical and thus critical that we learn the symbolic language that is constantly obscuring what is so vividly the truth and so obvious, because that's what it is. The Hegelian dialectic is action, cause a action, that then a problem, create a problem, and then provide a solution. And this is what happened with the scamdemic, and will happen again, and it'll continue happening forever until we come together.
One thing I think that's very important for people to maybe consider, the role of media and news, because you touched on that earlier.
News, yeah.
Right? I think we all really need to be a little more discerning of where we get our news from.
For sure.
And what outlets, because when it's openly admitted that, your largest broadcast in your nation is paid for by your federal government.
Right. That is...
freedom of the press, veracity of the news, what you're getting as a paid for infomercial. And I think that's, truthfully, bro, between you and me, the fact that we have that going on in our country right now, which is what Joe Rogan speaks out against, Dana White, Jordan Peterson, even to some degree, Andrew Tate, people like this are saying, whoa, man, what's going on up there in Canada? I don't want it. Like I want nothing. That's what's giving rise, Nico, to podcasts.
Yes.
And our ability to host these wonderful things for people to come and hear our perspectives, which are not sanctioned by the government, not paid for by the government, but not any less any less valid than what you're getting.
Absolutely, brother.
Right?
Absolutely. And by the way, media, you use the word media, comes from the word Medea, and that's actually the Greek word or Greek goddess of illusion. How fucking convenient.
Wow. Medea,
media. So we are literally trusting. We're watching the news through the media, paid media. So the goddess who literally provides the illusion, and through what? The illusion is a vision, right? You mean the television? Because they tell a vision. And what do we watch?
Oh, shit.
Programs.
Television.
The television. And we tune in to these programs as we're being programmed. And we used to change the channels. Paid for by the sponsors. Brought to you by
Pfizer.
Right. That was a big one. Throat to scam there. Pfizer this, Pfizer that, Pfizer that. Now, people are like, there's all kinds of articles everywhere. Pfizer's admitting this. Pfizer's being sued for that. And it's not being obviously talked about nearly as much as all the other stuff that's keeping more divide, whether it's what's happening at Gaza.
What percentage does Fauci own?
Oh man,
Want to go there?
yeah. They don't even call him Dr. Fauci anymore.
They should.
Now it's just Mr. And even that he doesn't deserve. Yeah. Anyways, these people, like, they all have their karma coming to them. I don't want to like be the one to condemn. However, we all did sign up for our roles, our souls. They knew before they came here. So to go back to reincarnation, I believe wholeheartedly in that. And I do believe thus being as a human, we knew generally what we're going to kind of come into. We're going to have some very important decisions to make, and how we make those decisions will determine how we come back. But we're constantly here trying to just graduate up the ladder of, think of it as school, university, Earth as a classroom. Yeah. And if that's...
Let me ask you this, Nico. What do you say to people? Because there's been some people, okay, that, listen, when you do a podcast, you're a host, you put your feelings, thoughts, opinions out there. There are people that go en masse. Some people love it, and some people not so much. Some people criticize it. There's always a critic, Nico.
Always.
You know that.
Always.
This is a good question for you, though, and I want you to think about it.
Yeah.
What do you... I told you earlier in the show that I'm Irish Catholic, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm not necessarily devout or anything, but, I have my beliefs or whatever, right? What do you say to people who get offended or get angry about, oh, Nico's into astrology and esotericism, that means he's anti-Christian, or like, do you ever get that hate?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And what do you say to that? Because I don't believe that's
I just
true.
say, you don't, just like when people say that's the religious sort of, that's one of them. It's like, oh man, you're anti-religious, but that's not the biggest one. The biggest one is when people are like, you believe in that shit, man? This is how I put it. First of all, for the religious people, the Bible bumpers, as they call them, and not just Bible, it could be Quran bumpers or whatever it is, the people that are identifying with an institution that actually itself at the highest priest class are astrologers, all of them. Whether it's Judaism, you have Kabbalah. Christians, Gnostics. Jaiism, what are they called? Or the, Muslims and Islam, you have the Sufi. But whatever it is, they all, when you go up to priest class, highest priest class, are all aware of astrology. This isn't something you believe in. It's a language and you speak it, you study it so you can learn it, and you can thus speak it. And that's the bottom line. If you don't believe in it, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's like gravity. It exists. You just can't speak. You can't begin to even engage in that conversation. So what human beings do, because it's the most convenient, is we dismiss that which we don't understand, because it puts us in a position where now we're ignorant, and we'll rather just not investigate, because that takes time to learn astrology. I'm still learning astrology. It's crazy when you go into, especially,
but it's not, oh, I'm Nico Laus, I believe in astrology, I'm anti-religious. You're not anti-religion.
No, exactly.
I mean, not
I still believe that Jesus exists. He walked the planet, and he was in a scene, actually, is what I'm learning as of most recently. And there's so much more when you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's there's so much more that you can...
The Gnostic Gospels, right?
Yeah, the Gnostic were the ones that were removed from the Bible. Why? Yeah. Why are all these books were removed? Because they didn't go with the agenda, So... What I am is not anti anything. I'm just pro truth, and whatever it takes, I'm willing to sacrifice, even if people hate me. Because again, that judgment, 3 fingers coming back. If you see me as I've got some kind of God complex because I dare to utilize and speak this language of astrology and try to compartmentalize personality characteristics in people in a way that makes sense to me, which it really has helped me. Now, there was a period of obsession, and I warn people, when you get it into, if you're not initiated, that's why there's initiation. If you're not properly initiated into the esoteric science, what you do develop indefinitely at some point is the Messiah complex. But it is something that you could actually graduate to if you don't get too deep into all the crazy drugs and inebriating yourself all the time with mushrooms and things. Because I know people that have gone that deep to the point that it's just dangerous, man. You either end your physical body, or you'll end your mind, and you just become another, as my buddy calls them, bots. You're an irrelevant, a non something player, what they call that in the video game, because you've just crushed your spirit. You've done the exact opposite, the forbidden of this stuff, and that's why it's ruled. All the occult stuff's ruled by Scorpio. It has to be forbidden.
My North Node.
Yeah. And it has to be because you recognize certain knowledge in the wrong hands is dangerous. You get Hitlers, you get people that, and I say Hitler as in like someone who just becomes tyrannical because now that they know, they want to force that knowledge on others rather than inspire. That's leadership. That's what it means to be Leo the king, not the tyrant. And if you look at the archetypes as the book, we were just talking about this book, lover, magician, warrior, you've heard that, right? The king, you know, the true king is a noble icon of exemplifying and living that which others want to be like, and they call him king. He doesn't proclaim himself the king, and it doesn't mean by his kingship that he has any power more than anyone else, you know? It's just really just you will become you will be seen as a leader if you just be and live what you believe. And that's where even my song on Uncaged, I believe it because I be it, I live it, I be it and I live it. So therefore the word believe is not believe with the second E, which has lies all over it. Be and live. That's it. Yeah. That was the whole premise of that. But you know what? I got to wrap because I think I don't even know if I hope our cameras are both rolling because we went way longer than any other guest.
Did we ever, man?
I'm not surprised, and honestly, I'm grateful.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Oh, such a pleasure, bro. So I mean,
thank you to the
we'll
audience
have you back.
For having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I mean, on behalf of everyone, I appreciate having a person who can bring in some of the concepts that you were just talking about in a way that I feel like bite size, man. We were able to articulate, or I was at least able to not articulate, assimilate and digest, and we'll bring you back, brother, because I mean there's so much more we can unpack. But with that said, when the mind is calmly collected and the imagination is properly directed, the dots are easily connected. I'm your host, Nico Sofianos. Remember who you are.